Right, okay, I think that's it. I think we're good to start. So just to welcome you again, just to let you know that the session is being recorded, so we will obviously be able to share this with you if you need any further detail after the event's finished. And we'll also pass you on all the details of those that are presenting today. So as I said earlier, it's the second session of our Tech Solutions for the Visitor Economy webinar. It'll be hosted by myself and my colleague Helen Cross, who's our digital and creative expert within the Growth Platform. So I'm just going to start really by saying, again, a big welcome. The first session looked at insights around dining management solutions, looking at potential solutions around social distancing from a technology perspective, and also the use of immersive technologies, which I think is probably fair to say went down really well. We got some really good feedback to that session, hence the reason why we're doing this one, and hopefully we'll be doing a few more. Today's speakers, as you can see from the screen, are Simon Taylor from commercial, who's the commercial director with Evoke, a rural-based company. So it's great to see, us working with technology firms from right across the city region. And Simon's going to be talking to you about new technology solutions for overcoming pandemic challenges. We've then, delighted to say, got Tim Roberts, who's the founder of DATP. So DATP, it's really looking at software associated with customer profiling software solutions. So again, that's helping you understand markets, understand trends, so you can help and develop your business models and your product models. Then I'd like to say we're going to speak to Connor DeLeo, who's the founder of Zoom. Get this right, Connor, sorry. Zooniversal Limited. And Connor's going to be talking to us around the use of QR codes and kind of the use of alternative payment methods. And then I'm delighted to say I'm really grateful to Laura Pye, who's the Director of National Museums Liverpool, for giving her time up today. Laura's going to talk to us just around how National Museums Liverpool have adopted new technology and using new technology in the light of COVID-19, just to give you some practical insights around how that tech's being used. And then we're just going to follow up by a Q&A. As you'll see, and probably everybody's really used to these sessions now, if you just use the questions box on your screen just to fire some questions across as and when you've got them, we'll do our best to respond to them. And then just final thing from me is a lot of this work is really around helping you to try and access some funds when you're adopting new technology. And there's a few things that are coming to light at the moment, particularly around an ERDF programme, Kickstart funding, which the city region has got access to. And again, that will help you around accessing potential funding for investment in new technology. And then there's also a thing called the Future Innovation Fund, and we're just waiting to know when the second round of that will be launched. But again, you get all the details on that from the Growth Platform website. I'm just going to hand over now to Helen, who's just going to talk to you really around the technology sector and how our two sectors are working together to help you kind of deal with and become more resilient in the face of COVID-19. So over to you, Helen. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Good morning, everybody. It's been fantastic over the past couple of months finding out about all the tech companies that we've got in the city region that are operating in the visitor economy space. So just this week, in addition to speaking to today's speakers, I've also been chatting with other companies such as Comesto, which is developing a buying platform of high-end products so that independent eateries can benefit from the bulk buying discounts that big chains enjoy. I've spoken to Menu Guru, which is helping people with allergies to have better dining experiences and therefore helping restaurants to welcome more people to their venue by being able to cater for them easily. And I've heard from High Impact as well, a Wirral-based company who's developed virtual tours for the likes of Chester Zoo and for a local B&B, Mere Brook House, to help these businesses really improve their engagement with customers and to drive bookings. So there's a range of tech businesses looking at sort of helping the visitor economy to open and operate safely. So today with the Evoke, DATP and Zooniversal, they'll all be giving you their response to the pandemic and how it's changed their businesses and the opportunities that they've developed to help visitor economy businesses to thrive. But before I hand over, I just want to highlight a couple of programs that we've got in the local growth hub to support your business. So a key one at present is the LCR 4-Start program. And this helps companies from any sector to embark on their digital journey and find out what sort of digital technologies could improve their business. So this can also work with current processes in businesses and help kind of connect systems or help you work more efficiently or access new markets. So it's a real wide range of support that's available, and that's delivered through our universities. And the programme developers really just want to help the small and medium businesses to access the opportunities that are presented by things like sensors and virtual reality that were previously may have been out of reach. The other programme I'd like to mention is our New Markets 2 support. And this is where businesses can get a 35% contribution to the cost of commercial advice, which covers, again, things like products or service development and diversification. It can help with the marketing side of things as well. So again, this is for businesses in all sectors, so relevant to visitor economy businesses. So if you want any information about these, then do give me a shout. And as Pete said, we've just closed the first round of the Future Innovation Fund, but there are 2 more rounds coming on that and hopefully more beyond. And this is really for businesses that are innovating due to the challenges caused by the pandemic, and can use sort of money to get products to market quickly and with commercial benefits. So keep an eye out for the next round opening, hopefully sort of early September time. As you listen to today's speakers, it'd be great if you could share with us your kind of biggest challenge that you're looking to tech providers to solve. I'm sure Laura, when she talks about what the journey that NML has gone through in sort of reopening to the public, we'll be talking about the challenges that they face there and what they've actually adopted to help them. And on the last webinar, the tech community were really asked to consider ways that restaurants could reduce no-shows, as this is having a big impact on the industry at present. So have a think about what's having an impact for you, and we'll see who we can find that's either currently developing a solution or got something that they can actually adapt for yourselves. And this may also become a topic for a future webinar. So please do share what's most relevant to you. Just pop it in the comments and we'll pick that up. For now, though, I'd like to invite Simon from Evoke to tell us a bit about what they've been doing. They've had some quite dramatic changes over the last few months, and we look forward to hearing what Simon has to say. Over to you, Simon. Simon, just still on mute, sorry.
Thanks, Helen. Cheers. I'm going to share my screen now and just go through sort of a presentation, share what our response has been to the sort of pandemic. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to share some of our experiences and thoughts on a new wave of challenges that the pandemic has thrown up. You know, it's an ever-moving feast, and our focus has been on how technology can help us get back to business and reopen in a safe and responsible way. We're based in the Wirral and pride ourselves on being at the forefront of digital technology and innovation. Our product design-led approach is a USP. We work with clients to understand their requirements, deliver digital solutions that fundamentally increase sales, drive operational efficiency, and improve customer engagement. So if you fast forward to 2020, clearly the world has changed. And with that came a new wave of challenges faced by our key clients and verticals. A fundamental question is, how do we reopen safely and responsibly? As a manufacturer ourselves, you know, we had sort of the same predicament shared by many of our clients. Our teams are our biggest asset, and we needed to give them the confidence and make the prospect of returning to work a positive experience. I think clearly here, perception is reality. It highlighted the importance of clear communication, taking tangible steps to show that the health and well-being of our colleagues is at the forefront of our priority list. We're also having some very interesting dialogue with our clients. You know, will customers ever use touchscreens again? What can we do? Do we need antibacterial overlays on our kiosks? Or will user interfaces, or do we need user interfaces that actually use hand gestures rather than touch? You know, a non-touch touchscreen because of public perception. At the same time, we were invited by McDonald's to join their part of their COVID response and led by their crisis team. This sort of communicated their phased approach for reopening and involved 300 sort of suppliers and all of their franchisee community. They're trading well above expectation from delivery and drive-through, and yesterday reopened 700 restaurants for dining. So it's clear from the communication we've had with those guys that the 5,000 kiosks that they've already deployed across their estate will play a pivotal role in delivering operational efficiency, customer throughput, but also limit the level of human interaction through the customer journey, which they think, because of public perception, is a real key role. Love them or loathe them, McDonald's are a good barometer for public opinion. And clearly the level of planning and strong marketing they've engaged on so far is paying dividend. However, where companies can get it wrong, the potential for long-lasting damage and brand reputation is huge. Because of the work we do with JD Sports, the reopening of Nighttown in London really stands out for me as a headline grabber. It was an absolute PR disaster. So we looked at everything that was going on at the time, and based on the main challenges, we really focused our key efforts on health screening, managing capacity, and social distancing. So again, product-led, the first piece of innovation we looked at was a temperature check kiosk that included a hand sanitizer. Simple to use, very easy to deploy. In light of recent announcements regarding retail and the mandatory requirement for face coverings, in an agile and sort of intuitive way, we've developed the software to also use facial recognition to check for the presence of a face mask, as well as measure temperature. Very simple. The screen can manage, it's got an infrared thermometer built into the screen, which measures the temperature in seconds. And there are also on-screen prompts for like access, please enter, please speak to a manager, reminders for face masks if it detects someone that's not wearing a face mask, and can provide real-time SMS and email alerts, and even send a picture of any individual who is showing a high temperature. So clearly this was initially aimed at screening employees, and we actually use it in our own premises as well. But interestingly, there is increased interest from businesses such as gyms who are actually going to start proactively starting screening their customers. So again, that sort of to me shows how much things are changing. In terms of benefits, you know, it's not mandatory this, but it is a very proactive step that promotes trust within the business and within your colleagues, and also operationally saves a huge amount of time when we were having to do sort of handheld manual temperature checking as people entered the business. The next challenge is sort of really around managing customer capacity and then social distancing. So we started with a sort of simple customer counting solution. I think, again, what's very clear from sort of press coverage is this issue is here to stay. You know, we're now in a period of suppression until a vaccine becomes available. And even then, the reports of this being necessary until 2022. You've got flare-ups like Leicester and also extended lockdowns in places like cities like Melbourne, both of which are quite close to my heart because A, I was born in Leicester, and B, my daughter was due to go out to Melbourne to do an industrial placement year, and all that's had to be put on hold. So again, personal experience is very important in all of this. And during the lockdown phase and sort of gradual reopening, one thing that's become very clear is the importance of consistent on-brand communication to the customer. There are examples from myself, my own experience, such as Sainsbury's and IKEA, who are doing it fantastically well. You know, they're heavily manned at the front of the store with greeters, who are clearly some of their best customer-facing colleagues. But I'm still sure we've all got some own horror stories out there. Very simply, the digital screen promotes a consistent on-brand message, but also empowers the customer to make their own choices based on fact. Simple red, amber, green system. So if the capacity of your venue is 60 people and you've currently got 40 in there, I can make a decision on whether I want to enter now, knowing it's at capacity but full, you know, getting towards full, or actually I'll come back later. Again, it's a tool, part of a toolkit to help businesses reopen. It's not going to work on its own. It may need to be supervised by security guards or greeters, but it does send a very clear message to customers that their safety and the safety of sort of colleagues really matters. Part of the system, from an operational perspective, provides a very easy online portal dashboard with management information showing number of units, status of devices, and allows specific sites to have configurable to allow you to configure thresholds to be set for specific sites. So all very straightforward, does what it says on the tin. However, it does pose some interesting questions about how do you go beyond simply measuring capacity and the number of guests at a point in time and move towards monitoring and managing social distance. Now, how do we go beyond floor stickers and providing bottles of hand sanitizers to create enjoyable, socially distanced environments? So this is where, as more of a strategic solution, is Core Intelligence. And it's a new tool we've developed that puts the exact location of your customers, staff and visitors in plain sight to you as a business. Key feature is Active Distant Alert Monitoring, acronym of ADAM. It accounts for every person entering and leaving your retail, hospitality or entertainment venue and is accurate to 1.5 meters. Based on AI machine learning, which continually monitors movement and clustering, reporting to the online portal in real time. Again, proximity alerts can be customized and inform you of operational issues such as capacity thresholds being reached or infringements to social distancing. This data can then be used and analysed to improve processes, store layout and even customer flow. Typically, 90% of visitors can be tracked using passive, anonymised, non-interpretable customer location data from your personal device. We emit a lot of information as we walk into venues through personal devices. And the key benefit to this system is there's no opt-in or downloads required. And it respects customer privacy and is fully GDPR compliant. So I'm just going to play a video that explains and shows some sort of examples of how this works. So there are two forms of the ADAM implementation within Core Intelligence. And in a nutshell, I guess the best way is think of there's an online version, which is a full suite offering real-time social distancing monitoring, which allows you to track where your customers and staff are on the floor plan and the relative proximity to each other in real time throughout the day. Offline is more tailored towards just employees and is a wearable device which allows to monitor and alert if there are any breaches of social distancing throughout their working day, and again allows you to identify areas such as kitchens, back of house, where we are having social distancing breaches, and then we can take the corrective actions to resolve that. The system provides a very simple dashboard which is sort of heat mapped, detailing instances of clustering and breakdown in social distancing. And the important thing is, beyond the pandemic, this system can also be used beyond social distancing monitoring and reverts back to its original sort of rationale, which is customer tracking, heat mapping, but also identifying the unknown customer, which is a great challenge in retail, which then plays into loyalty, targeted marketing, and even generating personalized content on digital signage as we get to know our customer. So in summary, there's a real wave of new challenges, and clearly the scale and pace of change is daunting prospects for a lot of businesses. You know, what's become very clear is there's no manual here, and the guidance we're getting, is it enough? Is it clear enough? And fundamentally, how do you know when you've done enough as a business? Saying that, there are definitely common challenges here, and you can take a lot of learning from other businesses and markets. McDonald's, for example, really looked to what their operation in the Netherlands was doing as they came out of lockdown earlier than the UK. Reopening a business involves building trust and customer loyalty, and from our own experiences, we know that perception is reality. So the proper safety protocols and an active social distancing plan can clearly help build that trust. In terms of metrics and KPIs, again, it's thrown up a whole new set of KPIs. You know, what is safe capacity? Who's telling you what the safe capacity for your venue is? Does this tell enough? We also need to consider social distancing, dwell time, visit duration. Can we identify log jams in the customer flow? And have we got the data to respond and act and amend our processes to resolve this? And then the final piece is really around reputational risk and due diligence. You know, clearly the importance of a robust process and system is key to mitigate reputational risk and damage. You know, the cost of getting this wrong is huge, and we're already seeing instances of litigation already being reported in the US. And all the way throughout this presentation, I've sort of lauded McDonald's as this shining light of how to do this. No surprise, in the US, they're already having cases against them. So even when we do it well, instance and breakdown in procedure can cause reputational risk and damage. So thank you for your time. Appreciate the opportunity to speak on this. And again, if there are any questions going forward, I'm sure the contact details will be shared at the end.
That's great. Thanks very much, Simon. If you can just stop sharing your screen, and then we're going to move on to the next people. So I think having had my first restaurant visit this week, I think that whole thing about the trust side of things is really important. You want to trust that the venue has really got your best interests at heart. And I think also the legacy element that you've got in the tech there as well, obviously keeps it alive for a lot longer. So that's great to see the kind of foresight in that, and how this is not just an investment for now, it's an investment for businesses in the future. So thanks very much for sharing all that. I'm now going to hand over to Tim Roberts to talk to us about all our data side of things and how we can use the data in our business and sort of what it tells us and how it can help us. So if you'd like to join us now, Tim, and take the hot seat.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Great presentation there from Simon. It actually teed me up quite nicely, actually, in terms of obviously the data and then how that's all collated. So let's just share my screen. 1 second. Okay, so I'll just give you a quick introduction as to who we are. Hopefully the slide will move on. That's good. 1 second, everybody. Technical breakdown. Right. All right, go again. Share the screen again. Okay, I'll go to presentation. I did have it all nicely teed up. There we go. Okay, we're there. We've obviously gone through quite a bit of a journey and had to pivot a number of different times. And we reformed the DATP, where we took all of the IP that we developed and then put it into DATP. DATP stands for Data Analytics Technology Platform, and we relaunched that back in mid-2019. where we were focused was very much in the hospitality and leisure sectors. And I know that I just introduced Graham Pearson. He's quite involved in the group and everything else with yourselves. And I think in terms of what we're trying to do is bring together, right, through our own IP, a load of other different stacks of technology that work together. So very much in collaboration. So what we do is we provide the data insights, which obviously the client owns their own data, and want to try and reveal, in essence, what's really going on. So from all the data which is being collected, what's going to happen with that? And obviously we've been working with businesses where they've got masses of consumer data, which in actual fact they don't own, haven't actually as well got permission. So we've done, again, work with those in terms of them energizing that through the social channels to obviously get engagement. And what we're aiming to do as well, through the launch of NEO, which I'm going to come on to, is actually provide the SME sector with big data insights. Now, these insights obviously collated from both offline and online sources. So what we're doing here then is building up a whole data lake, which obviously we call the data warehouse, and all done because obviously from the journey, and obviously where Simon's mentioned as well, is the GDPR compliance, which obviously is a massive thing. And although is sort of lower down in the priority list of businesses right now for obvious reasons, is going to be a massive impact on those which have not followed or not got compliance. So we've launched the brand NEO through some of the groups we've been working with, the business different groups. We put out surveys in terms of what really sort of from a branding perspective, NEO seems to have sort of energized people and an understanding of what that stands for. We've obviously had to pivot as a business numerous times as well through this journey, where we've had technology named, but it just hasn't resonated. So that's, again, sort of a message out to me, to everyone, is that, okay, you might not get it right first time, but keep on going and you will eventually, hopefully, get it right. In terms of the hospitality network, which obviously we have clients in, we have a national gym franchise network. We have regional and national food drink supply and platforms. We've got a global purpose-led social platform, which we're heavily involved with, as well as then within hospitality groups. And also we have a satellite scanning operation. So in essence, this is where we were. And that's where, come March, we were looking very, very good. And then suddenly we have COVID, and a lot of these businesses are closed down, obviously through the government. So we actually then said, well, okay, we're going to have to repivot again. So what are we going to do? And that's where we then come to this whole modularization of breaking down our very complex system into a very simple system, or to make it simpler. With my background, obviously I've had, and with Graham's, we've had sort of over 20 years experience in the hospitality sector. I was involved with the annual hotel conference. We've obviously got independent hotelier relationships. We've designed and built apps and data lake solutions for different various businesses. We have as well in our network PPE product and solutions network, which we are supporting and helping, which obviously is, again, where's the market need? Market need was in the PPE area, and so obviously help and assist. So I'll have a conversation with Simon later about obviously what the solutions he has to add to that. So we're heavily involved in terms of, again, the hospitality space. But now, obviously, what we're doing is now breaking out. And what we've done is we've created NEO. NEO is a platform which is a plug and play. Its primary, the starting point of NEO Insights is where you are catching or capturing a load of interaction in terms of your website. Yes, there's Google Analytics, there's loads of other different analytical platforms out there, but we've actually brought this to the market, and it's going to be a freemium product. So that will give you your company lookups, it'll give you social profiles, obviously all within the compliance, but in essence, you've got real information coming from what's happening with the interaction of your website, landing pages, apps, etc. Obviously, the point here is, from my background, where I wanted to get to was one platform that could overlay all of my web interactions into a central database. If I could get that, I've then got a 360-degree view of what this person's actions are. And that's what we built. And then we had GDPR, we had to rebuild it again from a GDPR perspective. And now we had COVID, and now we've had to now split out again. So this shows in terms of what we've had to do as a business in order to then be able to supply for the market need, right? Which is about this platform now that overlays all actions, whether they be offline, online, where they're captured in CRMs, project management systems, where it's on spreadsheets, literally can be condensed into one platform. Obviously, from that as well, so in the ad tech, martech world, we can also then combine all of the, if you're doing paid campaigns within Facebook or AdWords or any of these, again, this is a whole mashup, and that sits into Neo Pro, which obviously what that's doing now is giving your real return on investment as well as first click, which is a panacea of where we're trying to get to as well, what's driven this customer. The key bit of that is you're then being able to build audiences. So in being able to then build an audience, and the audiences in terms of the people which are engaging, that then comes into Neo Enterprise. So there's our levels in terms of the product, and in terms of what we go to market, and we start campaigning in September. So that sort of gives you a sort of an overview, and the throwaway there is obviously you also have what we call now Neo Trust, which is the GDPR compliance angle, complete vault. So again, from access requests, from information, which obviously as we move through and there's a UK law, etc., will become an important part of the makeup for a business and providing that information. In terms of a very brief sort of presentation today, I've got a little bit of a video to show you just at the end, but in terms of what we're always interested in feedback, and whilst we've been developing our go-to-market, if you will, strategies and the platform, obviously what I've got here is sort of gifting 5 opportunities for people, obviously through our contact, email Helen, and or you're interested in finding out more, or you want demonstration, then obviously let us know. But we're gifting obviously 5 opportunities where you have it for free, right? So that's our give, if you will, our gift in terms of then helping us in terms of building the case study as well. So that's sort of giving you a bit of an overview of Neo, and obviously in terms of what we're doing with the COVID response is working now very strongly with businesses in terms of how they are reconnecting with their customers and through the data, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we're doing. So let me just come out here. Hopefully we'll get to the video and show you this. So if you want to go and visit neoonline.live, which is where the
people are now consuming your brand everywhere. On the move. In the gym. Even in the sky. How do you know when someone is ready to purchase? How do you capture them? Engage with them? Serve them the right content? The future of customer understanding is here. The next level of data insight to view the exact moment when, where, and how your customers are behaving to predict what happens next. Ready to give exact data insight into profiles viewing on your site live, on your social channels in real time, and showcasing drop-offs and allowing you to target potential customers. Neo.
Great. So first off, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you all, and obviously happy to take questions at the end and or answer anything via my email, whatever. Okay. Thank you so much. Who do I hand back to now? Are you there, Helen?
Sorry, I thought Pete was coming in to introduce Laura, but no, sorry to leave you hanging there. Tim, that's great. So, and we'll be sharing that to relevant companies, that opportunity. So appreciate that, because I think that's how we want to build things. We need to be sharing information, making sure things work, and obviously helping you adapt something that's really useful for digital economy businesses, but also have them help you to build a robust system. So thanks very much for sharing that. Apologies, I thought I was introduced. I thought it was Laura next, but I've just been told it's Connor's going to be giving us the kind of art of the possible now. He's going to be speaking about sort of the possibilities that we get from QR codes, and also alternative payment methods for live performance. So how we actually kind of do things differently in the future that this pandemic's given us the opportunity. So over to you, Connor.
Thanks very much. Just want to say thanks very much for the opportunity to be here. Can everybody hear me okay before I start? Yeah, I assume so. Okay, so basically, I'm approaching this from a slightly less experienced point of view. I've come up through universities and colleges and lived through what we are now referring to as the information age. Data is the #1 commodity, and it seems to me that the biggest difference, if I was to draw a comparison between my mother's current point of view and my point of view, can be explained like this. If I was to pull together a curriculum of everything I'd seen on the internet, it would blow my mum's mind. But if my mum was to pull together a curriculum of everything she's experienced in life, that would also blow my mind. So there's this sort of trade-off of, well, my mother's been down a sort of curriculum of information that she's arguably guided or being guided by great technologies that look like they've been developed by these very people. So it's this arguing of, in the one hand, you've got a bunch of people who are quite used to finding their own information and learning their way. And then you've got a whole bunch of perhaps younger people, or just people who are on the internet for at least half of their lives now, where they are used to being fed a lot more information and suggested stuff and recommended things. So at this point now, when I'm 24, I've come out of universities and colleges, I've moved around a lot. I've started businesses in London, and I came back to Liverpool with obviously the hope to carry on with my careers and then carry on in tech. But I realized that something wasn't really doing it for me. I mean, I was finding it so hard to know who was out there, like who's in my community. It's all very well and good McDonald's being able to afford all this technology to be able to throw ads at the very second I'm hungry. Like, of course, McDonald's are always going to be able to afford that. They're the client that brings the big bucks. So we can assume that if we are going to build better tools for advertising, that they will be put directly in the hands of the people who are paid for them or can even afford them. And therefore, you always got the most powerful, richer people who tend to push forward the new progression, and therefore it gets harder and harder for the smaller person or maybe a smaller community company to really start at least treating the market like a fair playing field, put it that way. You can put out a Facebook ad the same way McDonald's can, but the resources and the time they have and everything they have to make a very compelling story out of that information is key. So moving forward from the information age, where are we going? I'm going to try and outline what I see the information age moving to the wisdom age and how that would kind of transpire. So my first biggest problem is that we are not representing local information well enough. So if I was to, within music, as I'm currently mostly based within music and arts, if I was to ask simple questions such as what artists are out there, what new music's out there, what venues are out there, and what events are happening, we get curated responses, normally either by what we've seen or what we've been told, but there is no one single place to see this information. And a huge reason why this isn't possible at the moment is partly because it doesn't profit the global companies and corporations that do quite literally own the internet, but also then it stops, it's it's, oh, sorry, that's slipped my mind back. It doesn't help these corporations, but on the other side of things, it means that it's distracting us from what could be our local area to these global corporations now, or bigger companies. So when it comes to representing information, I've already started building databases for local artists and a self-updating Spotify playlist that runs off an algorithm, which means that any artist on the database that is on Spotify, if they ever release a song, it gets added automatically to the playlist. So we're starting to work with information here to figure out, okay, people are used to seeing new music on Spotify. Where's the Liverpool new music playlist on Spotify? Oh, right, there isn't one. We'd better make one. So now by representing local information, we're starting to level the playing field. Now, one key way where we can use technology to present information in a way that is very cost efficient, very fast, trustable, and very much proven in other regions and countries to work quite well. Now, I'm not saying we should start up a WeChat, but QR codes are an incredibly powerful, simple piece of technology. They're effectively physical markers for any digital content. So for me, when we were coming out of the Black Lives Matter movement online, which was very noisy and lots of things being said, it seems like one of the actual actions was that there might be information notices around the city. Now, I'm actually for having stone or actual physical notices. It shows that it's in the real world. It's a real world problem. It's not always just pushed to this online, I will just create a hashtag. So it's good. However, I think with digital natives these days and all this other content and information we have, it would seem a shame if there was only still 2 or 3 sentences on that specific subject. I'm starting to think now people need access to a basic level of information, aka the simple answer, and then they have the freedom to go and explore. Because it's in the exploring where they develop an opinion, and they might see different opinions, and it gets kind of confusing. But if there was a place where you could see a much more objective reality, aka Liverpool mirroring its own information through perhaps a network of QR codes. So let's just say, for instance, at every major Liverpool landmark, there's just a red, perhaps liver bird shaped QR code. And now we've seen QR codes before, but the problem is that it hasn't actually delivered its potential. China obviously loves WeChat, where they literally pay for everything with QR codes. They also chat using WeChat, and they've basically built all this functionality into one app. And whilst that might seem dystopian, as someone in theory has to own that app, which I understand, having that information in the same place as the payments system enables a huge amount of quick fluidity and business to occur. Whereas, as we can see here in England, we don't really have that same kind of fluidity. So on the one hand, this talk is about how do we represent information better. So in a nutshell, getting QR codes out there to the point where people can now, just with the inbuilt camera app on your phone, all of them will scan a QR code, and you just get a little pop-up. And in that pop-up, it's effectively a blank page where you can put a huge amount of varied content or information or products and all these things. And one of the things I'm really trying to push with the council and just people in Liverpool is push the message that if we choose how to distribute information, if we put a flyer out when people leave the train at Lime Street, they will see our information before they resort to Google. If you just have to keep going to Google every time you want to learn about the city, Google will decide how this city is presented. And just as a simple example, when I'm working with the council, it transpires that Google doesn't put public toilets on their map, but we don't actually have a map of public toilets either. There is no map of public toilets. This is public information. So I think to begin with, let's represent our local information better. But then let's just say, the analogy I use is a bit dark, but let's just say you've represented your scene. You know who's out there. So you've gone out and you've found this dying baby. You've found this thing you love, like your scene, you're an artist you love, but you want to keep them alive. How do you do that? Now, I've released a video on this, and I can send a link to this after the chat, which explains it at much more depth. But there is the digital way of supporting an artist and the physical way. Now, the digital way at the moment is the most popular way. However, it requires a huge amount of scale. It requires quite literally 15 million hours of streaming in order to get minimum wage for one artist on Spotify. So if you take the whole population of Liverpool and try to drum up all of those streaming figures, it would still require, a mass effort where everybody in the city still listens to each song something like 30 times. It's just silly. So digitally, the system works for big subsets or demographics, but not for smaller demographics. And this is what interests me. So when I talk about smaller demographics, humans, Homo sapiens, for a huge amount of our evolutionary timeline, maxed out at groups of about 150. And then we used our imaginations to imagine up gods and all these different goals, which means that two tribes could work together and we became more powerful as a result. But for a long time, 150 was actually where comprehensible limits would occur for a lot of human nature, because that's where tribes would almost average out. So I'm saying, imagine in the physical world now, we only had 150 people. How on earth could we get those 150 people to keep one musician alive? Now, there are ways. They can PayPal, they can throw money at them online, and there's even ways in the physical world through card machines and by buying beers at gigs, and there's all seems to be these different middlemen. However, what I did realize is that if 150 people at that moment in time had a pound on them and threw it at that person would make 150 pounds in a split second. If you want to do the equivalent using cards, or throw multiple £1 at people using cards, I was starting to realize that there are compatibility issues with the evolution of money. In this sense, in the physical world, if you had 150 people with a bank card, they couldn't just throw the bank card at you. They have to go to a terminal or ignore the card and go to their phone and use their phone to pay. What I am now developing, I'm testing in Liverpool very soon, and we'll happily talk to anybody who wants to learn more about how that test might occur. But ultimately, I've built a machine called the tap machine, where you can tap it multiple times to rack up the denomination that's been set on the machine. So on average, by standard on every machine during the trial, they're going to be set up to 50p. So every time you tap the machine once, it's an immediate 50p donation to whoever has linked their account to that machine. However, you can tap this fast multiple times, and every tap is a 50p. So it racks up all those 50p's and then it transfers it in one transaction to the user. Now, this might seem just like a fun little piece of technology, and in all fairness, it's not that confusing to build. But truly what this enables people to do is throw digital money at people. And if you want to really look at the analytics of how that would help, if you have 150 people in a room, or you have a venue where people just know they have to go in there, and so long as they tap a machine 5 times every day, the scene will survive, that kind of things. If you build the economics around the idea that in the physical world, you have more power to keep your community alive than on the digital world, where a lot of information is mixed up and, it's difficult to really push the message. So we have all these ridiculously good machine learning algorithms that help push the message. And I'm saying, let them do that online. We've lost that game. Let's try in the physical world to show people how a small group of humans you care about can keep you alive again through the correct payment systems in the physical world. Anyway, I think that almost was 10 minutes-ish. That's about all I have to say, by the way. I mean, there are more things I can add, but that's the simple answer.
That's great, Connor. Thanks ever so much for your insights there. Really, really insightful and really fascinating to listen to you. I think you're right, the kind of ability to scale up these opportunities, and when you look at QR codes and how long they've been around for, it frightens me you're only 24, by the way. But I can remember QR codes kind of 10, 15 years ago. And as you say, to realise the opportunity there is quite something. So thank you ever so much for your insights. We're just obviously running short on time, so I'm going to just quickly introduce Laura Pye now, who's the Managing Director of National Museums Liverpool and also Chair of our District Economy Board. So we work very closely with Laura, particularly around dealing with some of the challenges that COVID-19 have thrown at the sector per se. And delighted to say that we're kind of well on with our own recovery planning for that, and we do see the importance of technology and linking businesses through to the grant funding and the expertise to help you make that transition, being a key part of moving our way through to the kind of the transition, I suppose, through to the new normal. So we've just invited Laura on just to give a few insights really around the way that NML is one of our major pillars and attractions in the city, across the city region, when you think about Port Sunlight as well, and the Lady Lever Art Gallery, are dealing with and using new technology to try and repurpose the visitor experience so that we can support the visitor economy as we move forward over the next kind of 6 to 12 months or so. So if I could just hand over to you, Laura, if you could just unmute yourself and show us the video, that would be great.
Super. Thanks, Pete. I'm hoping you can hear me. So hello, everybody. So I just was going to talk through a bit of our experience of having opened. We have now opened World Museum and Walker. We're into our 2nd week of opening for those 2 sites. And we're hoping to open our waterfront sites in August and Lady Lever and Sudley from September onwards. And so I think what we've learned from this whole experience is we used technology before, but nowhere near to its capacity. And what we've learned is we can use the technology to really help us with some of the challenges we've dealt with COVID. So I think the first one and the biggest one for us was about the fact I'm sat at home, and the vast majority of my team are sat at home. And we use Microsoft 365, and we use Teams for that. And we've been able to do all of our recovery planning from our homes and work on shared documents and write the risk assessments and do all of the planning, do all of the meetings and all of those kind of things whilst we are sat at home. We have had a couple of staff in site, and we have at times had to do video calls where they walk us round particular parts of the building to look at, you know, pinch points and things like that. But the fact that you can do that, the fact that, you know, if we've got colleagues on site, we can say, just go up to the 3rd floor and show me that pinch point, and so I can see whether the risk assessment really means that we can't open it or we can open it. And so we've been able to do all of that work remotely, which has been absolutely fantastic, all working off the same document, all knowing where everything is because it's in a shared point and all of those kind of things, and that was fantastic. One of our biggest challenges, and I think one of the biggest challenges for probably everybody, is going to be this issue around capacity. So what does social distancing look like in our sites? Now, I'm fortunate in lots of ways. World Museum and Walker are both very large venues with actually quite good capacity to begin with. The museum sector generally are working out capacity through a couple of ways. They're either doing a calculation on floor space or they're doing something on fire capacity. Roughly speaking, it ends up the same. So roughly speaking, our capacity for social distancing is 1/3 of our normal fire capacity. So if you take your normal fire capacity, if you take it down to 1/3, that is the capacity that pretty much all of the museums, certainly the national museums, are working on at the moment. Actually, that's quite interesting in terms of what that does when we look at the visitor profile on that. And so interestingly, across NML as a whole, roughly 1/3 of our visitors also come from Liverpool City region. So it makes sense for that to be our capacity. But then we have to think about how are we going to control that capacity and how are we going to know about that 1/3 capacity. We already had visitor counters on site, but our visitor counters always counted people in and not people out, and so they didn't give us capacity numbers. So part of the technology we have invested in during COVID is we've upgraded our visitor counters so that they now do give us capacity figures. So they tell us exactly how many people are in site at any one time. What's quite important for that as well is they tell us where for particular areas of the gallery. So in World Museum, our aquarium is really, really popular. And so we've put additional people counters onto the aquarium space so that we can manage that capacity. And the people counter works in a way that it emails my control room and my visitor services team when we get to 70% of our capacity. So it emails with a warning that goes straight to their phones and whatever and tells them that a particular space or the whole venue is at 70% of capacity. And therefore we then can make a visual decision about what we do about those kind of things, which is kind of quite important to us. Obviously, about a week or so before we were planning on opening, the government announced new guidance around track and trace, which for a free venue like ours caused us some difficulties. We don't normally know who is in our building. And we had worked out how we could know how many people were in the building, but we hadn't worked out how we would be able to contact those people because we never felt that we'd need to do it. So track and trace caused us some issues and delayed us opening by a bit longer than we'd have liked. But basically we used Galaxy as our kind of ticketing solution that we've used for our temporary exhibition, where we've sold tickets. So we reconfigured our Galaxy system to be able to offer free tickets to people so that we could take their data. We had the whole conversation around the GDPR compliance around that and how would we, we weren't very keen on asking people to fill in a slip of paper as they came through the door because there's a whole issues around contamination of the pen and all of that kind of stuff, but also around GDPR compliance around that. So we implemented a ticketing solution based on capacity on every 30 minutes. So a certain capacity based on every 30 minutes. And that was based on our average dwell time. So we know what our average dwell time is in the museums. We know what the capacity is. Therefore, we could work out how many tickets we could sell in every half an hour block. But what we were also very keen to do was to ensure that people who either didn't know that they needed to buy a ticket or didn't actually have the technical ability to get a ticket could still enter our sites. it's really important to us in terms of accessibility, that NML's an accessible venue that people can walk in, and we didn't want to be turning away, you know, we didn't want to be turning away the little old man who comes to the Walker every Wednesday for the coffee just because he doesn't have the internet, or the family with small children who again didn't have internet and therefore couldn't book. So if you've seen any of our marketing around us opening the venues, depending on where you've seen it will depend on what the message is. So if you've seen us speaking on Twitter, or you've seen it on our website, or you've seen it on any digital format, we talk about, please, you have to pre-book a ticket, please pre-book a free ticket. And that's based on the fact that if you're reading it on Twitter, you can pre-book a ticket. If you've heard us talk about it on the radio, or you've seen it in the Echo, or in the physical copy of the Echo and things like that, or printed media, then we do say that people can rock up on the day and we will book them in. But then that caused us an issue of how were we going to do that? So we've got two systems in place to do that at the moment, and both seem to be working fairly effectively. But just for reference, about 50% of our visitors on the days for both World Museum and for Walker are turning up on the day without having booked a ticket. So in terms of our pre-book in advance, 50% of our audience currently aren't doing that. What we've done is we've used QR codes outside for the queue. So where they come, there's two queuing systems, particularly at World. At Walker, it's a bit quieter and therefore we don't need to do that. But at World Museum, you'd arrive, there's two queues. One that says, if you've already booked your ticket, come down here and you show your ticket and in you go. And another that says, if you haven't, please scan this QR code, and it takes you straight through to our ticket booking system, and you can book yourself on there, and then it takes about 30 seconds and you can go into the venue as normal. If you don't have a smartphone to be able to do that, my team have iPads that do exactly the same thing. So you can go down and a member of the team will, basically using exactly the same system, book people on. We are doing that with very, very few visitors at the moment. So most people, although 50% of our audience don't have a ticket, most people are able to use the QR code or use the web address and directly book themselves one, which makes life a bit easier for my colleagues on the desks, because then we can get through people quite much quicker. We're taking lead contact names, so it's not every person. You just tell us how many people's in your party, a lead contact name, and in you go, and that meets our requirement for track and trace. And we're confident on the capacity numbers and all of those kind of things. And so they're the kind of things that we've been doing. At the moment, all of those things are working fairly successfully for us, and we hope that they will continue to work for us when we reopen our waterfront sites. So when we reopen Museum Liverpool and the Maritime Museum, International Slavery Museum, we may, down on the waterfront, we're just having some conversations at the moment about whether we will put in a kind of ticket booth type system down there. Just because, to be honest, at the moment, my colleagues at World Museum and at Walker are just outside, and the weather is kind of good enough to do that, so we can walk up and down the queues and help people book on if they haven't. But the waterfront can be a bit wilder than that, particularly when we get into October, November. So we may need to put in an actual booth type system to help people book on who haven't done so in advance. But the pushing of the messages, please book in advance, because it makes our life easier. So I think that's kind of how we've used the technology. I won't go on a lot longer because we're running out of time, but that's where we are. Thanks, Pete.
Great, thanks ever so much, Laura. That's really helpful, really insightful. It's I think some of the things coming across is you just can't legislate for consumer behaviour, can you? Particularly when you ask people to do things, they don't do it, and you're really working in challenging circumstances. And again, we've had a lot of that feedback from some of the restaurateurs with the no-shows that we alluded to before. So thank you ever so much. So we're just on 12, just to wrap things up, just to let you know that all the information about today's webinar will be on the Growth Platform website. We can put you into direct links to everybody that's presented today, so you can continue that conversation if you need to. And again, directly, please feel free to speak to either myself or Helen. Just the final thing to do, just to thank Simon, Tim, Connor and Laura for giving up the time. Really appreciate it, and I hope it's been useful for you all. And also just to thank Carolyn in the background, who's been running things sterlingly back at the ranch in Man Island. So thanks ever so much indeed. Again, if there's anything you want from us, please feel free to get in contact with us. Just go to the website, and we'll be in touch with you all soon, just to announce when we're going to do the next webinar. But any feedback you've got for us about today's session will be gratefully received. Okay, thank you. Have a great day, and thanks very much indeed for your time.